Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with a couple of quick and easy cards using Honeybee's Floral Vase stamp set and the coordinating stencils and wafer dies. I just couldn't resist, even though I know I love the dragonflies and all that stuff. Those will come later. But to start off with, I inked up the images from this Floral Vase set, and I inked them up with Honeybee's Intense Black ink, and I'm stamping it onto Simon Says Stamp's smooth white cardstock, and thought while I was at it I would do this more than once. And I literally do it more than once because this one I messed up. But paper's double-sided, so I just flipped the cardstock over and redid it. So anywho, stamped the vase onto the cardstock. I'm going to do 2 cards, but this is definitely, especially with the stencils, and you'll see as I get into that, you could make so many of these and just do it in mass production mode. You know, stamp everything and then start doing the stenciling and then do the die cutting, etc., etc. So anyhow, I stamped the vases, and then off camera I also stamped, there's 2 floral clusters in the set as well that I was pretty sure layered with this, and I was right. For once. So I'd stamp those as well. Once they're all stamped, I'm going to work on just my little waffle flower stencil mat here. And I'm using the coordinating stencil packs. There's 6 stencils that have all the pieces within to do quick and easy coloring. So I'm using the stencils. I'm using Simon's Pawsitively saturated inks. I'll link to the inks. I didn't even realize you couldn't see them on the screen because I was having so much fun making these. I was just in my little zone, doing my little ink blending, and wasn't even paying attention. So I'm using my little blending brushes. For the water or the vase, I'm using SEAFOAM and Surf ink. So I started with the lighter, and then I just come in with a little bit of the darker ink along the bottom there. That really steps it up. You don't have to do this. You could just use 1 ink per section, but I find that it just makes such a big difference to use a lighter ink and then to pull in a little bit of a darker ink with the same stencil. So I do everything first with the lighter ink. So here I'm doing the one stencil that exposes most of the leaves, and I do all of them. So I do both vases, the standalone little images here. Did that with a lighter ink, and then I go in with a darker shade. So I was using CELERY ink and then PEARFECTION ink for that. And then I just keep repeating that process. Every time I grab a new stencil, whatever color I'm using, I use whatever lighter ink first, and then I'll go back in and add a darker ink if I want. So that's it. It's just simple, and I don't know what it is. There's just something really satisfying about this. I can't even imagine how I would have felt if these had come out 15 years ago, back when I was newer at stamping, and to try and I remember when Copics first became a thing, this was the look we were trying to achieve back then. Before we really learned about how to layer colors and do the things, it was trying to get that smooth look that now you can just achieve with stencils and decent little inks. And yeah. Anyway, I went along, did all of that, and then for the flowers, for the flower centers, I used CAPPUCCINO ink. I used, what color ink? Sunbeam for those 2 little kind of flowers or whatever. And then I used Bubblegum, Sweets, and Taffy ink for the florals. And of course, if you didn't want to use the stencils, you could totally color these however. Copics, watercolor would be really fun with these. I might, if I get a chance, it would be fun to stamp this and watercolor it. But again, the stencils just make it satisfying and quick and easy. So I used all those stencils and then those pink inks, and that just finished off all of these, just blending the lighter colors and just kind of working my way to the darkest, which was the taffy ink, just to give it that bit of intensity. And then I could leave it here. They look great. But I did pull out just a few Copic markers, and I didn't do anything too crazy. I just dotted a darker brown marker onto the flower centers. I took an orange marker and added it to those little yellow flowers. Again, just kind of dotting it. And then I took a green marker and went along kind of the spines and whatnot of the leaves, Just, again, simple. You could always skip it, but it just gave it that little extra something. And again, like even though this is sped up in editing, like in real life, this took no time at all. It just gave it that little extra something. So I went along and did that. And then finally I took my RV66, so kind of a deeper pinky plum shade, and added that to kind of the, lower parts of the petals. And then that was it. That was enough. Just a little extra without being too crazy. And then once that was all done, I took the coordinating wafer dies and die cut everything so that they were all die cut. And then I also grabbed a piece of just a scrap of white cardstock, and I'm going to stamp one of the sentiments from this set. And I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool first. So brush my anti-static powder tool, realized I didn't really have any powder coming out of it. So you just kind of pulled a part of the lid down. I don't know what you call it. Pull that down. It's kind of like recharges it. So use that anti-static powder, inked up the stamp with clear embossing ink. I'm going to do this twice since I'm doing doubles of everything. So I'm going to stamp that twice with the clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to coat this with gold embossing powder. So coat that, tap off the excess, and then melt it with my heat tool, which is always the funnest part. It's kind of the same thing as using these stencils. It's that like satisfaction of like heat embossing when you see it melt. It's like, yes. So melted that with my heat tool. And then off camera, I die cut those with, there's like two little rectangle wafer dies in the set. So I die cut it with the smaller of the rectangle wafer dies. And I also had die cut some white cardstock with the Secret Garden A2 cover plate, which I'll get to in a minute. But before I get to that, I decided to quickly do the insides of my cards while I was at it. So I have my card base in the MISTI, and I'm just inking up that flower vase with my lightest aqua color ink, which is the SEAFOAM ink. And even just stamping it without coloring or anything, it's like, this is just a really pretty image. There's just enough detail to it. Like if you wanted to do really clean and simple, you could just stamp this. Like stamp it in black on a white card base, add some gold splatter and a sentiment. Done. Anyway, there's an idea. So stamped it in the light aqua color, and then I pulled out sentiments from the Bitty Buzzwords Bloom stamp set, and I stamped the kind word with the sweets ink, and I inked that up and stamped it twice. Did that to both card bases on the inside. And then once that was stamped, I pulled one of the little companion stamps from this set, lined that up, and I'm going to stamp that in that same intense black ink. So the inside says, "You are so kind." So got that lined up, inked that up twice to make sure it was solid, legible, all that fun stuff. Got that stamped, did the same thing to the second card base. Once those card bases are stamped, then I'm going to adhere the die cut, the Secret Garden A2 die cut that I cut from white cardstock, because I do love me some white on white backgrounds when it comes to die cuts like this. Plus I wanted to keep the card base and the die cut like simple, because I wanted obviously the vase to be, the center of attention. So I put the adhesive on that, adhered that to the card front. And then I had die cut some of Simon's Gold cardstock with the larger of the rectangle die from the set. So I adhered that little thanks sentiment to that. And I also die cut, I call it a trident. It's like a floral pick. Is that what it's called? That thing. I die cut that from the gold cardstock as well. And then just figured out how I wanted to sort of, attach it to the sentiment. And the back of that gold cardstock I had already coated with Simon's Big Mama foam tape, and I did the same thing with the vase and the flower layers, because this will give it that little bit of dimension and pop it up without it being too bulky. So I'm going to adhere the vase first, and got that popped up, and then I'll peel the backing off of the sentiment, and the backing is going to hold that little floral pick in place. So I'll wiggle that into place, press that down, and then I'll press that into place. And then the next layer of the florals will hold the rest of it in place. So there's no need to fiddle with, liquid glue or anything like that. So everything just lines up perfectly. Like it's all done for you. Like the stamp, and then the stencils, and then the die cuts with the layering. It's just done. Like, these came together so easily, and they were fun. So got those all adhered, and of course I couldn't just leave it. I'm going to add some bling. I did think, like, that's why I mentioned earlier, like, adding gold, like stamping it in black and adding gold splatter would look amazing. I was going to do splatter, but I decided against it. I know. But instead I just added a whole bunch of Studio Claudia gold foil pearls just to tie in the gold, you know. So adhered those into place with dabs of craft tacky glue, and that finished off these cards. So this video is actually part of a fun little video hop to share inspiration. So I will have info in the description box below the video, as well as a link to the start of the hop, all that fun stuff. So you can check that out below. I'll also have a link to my blog post and all the supplies used. So just check out the description box below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting. I very much appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.